Hello everybody, MeNoHaxor here. I am doing this video on key bindings, which is an interesting topic because a lot of people recently have been asking me about why I put things on like really strange locations. And so I thought I might make a video to show you my personal key binding setup, and offer suggestions on key bindings that a lot of people should be using because there's a lot of really interesting things that Riot has put into the key binding section that a lot of people aren't really aware about. So I'm going to quickly go over things that I use on my personal key bindings and kind of explain why I do that. So, in terms of whether or not you smartcast everything, what I do is that I do smartcast every single spell, with the exception of like very few things that you don't really need as a support. So, for my normal cast, I always put everything on shift and then whatever QWER and stuff like that. That's really useful for me because if I want to quickly check to see like the range of like whatever spell I'm using, like I can just press like shift Q, right? So now I can see like the range of like Fiddle Sphere and then just like keep walking around because I'm gonna be right clicking anyways, like when I'm moving around, right? And then like I can just quickly see like the casting range of that. So I think that's like something that I like to do. And then that way I just put my normal quick cast on the actual QWERDF. So that's pretty standard, I suppose. Some people like doing quick casts with like indicator and stuff like that. I really don't like it that much. I personally hate it. So, but if you do like it, you can put it there. I don't personally do it. For self cast, I always just leave it on the same key. You could do a quick self cast and all that stuff, but like I've always just left it at just like the simple normal cast, quick cast, and then self cast. I've never tried like the combination of them. I don't think it's that useful personally. And then I leave leveling up spells at the exact same spot, control QWER. Definitely get used to it if you haven't already. And then this is actually a really interesting key that a lot of people don't see. It's called target champion only. And the default, I believe, is on like this tilde, like weird apostrophe key on like the top left corner in your keyboard. And that spell is really, really useful because what this does is that if you're someone like Fiddlesticks, uh, you and you have like a spell like Terrify, right, that can normally target a creep for whatever reason, holding down this key and then casting it pretty much guarantees that you won't cast it on a creep. So like on the Shogath bot, when there's a couple creeps, I'll show you an example. So basically, like I can just Q this, right, and like it'll obviously hit that creep. If the Cho'Gath is like standing in the middle of creeps that make it really hard to Q him, I can just hold this button and then Q him, and then it'll pretty much guarantee that I can get the stun off. Like this is a really good time. See, like right there, my mouse was over this range creep, but like I still feared him. So that's a pretty useful application. It works really well on people like Soraka and Lulu because Soraka's heal affects creeps, and you can make sure you don't accidentally heal something. You can also use this key to walk past creeps, like jungle creeps, to get to like a specific ward spot and not aggro them. Because like right-clicking them gets kind of sketchy sometimes, so you can hold down this key and then you can just like walk right past them, and then you can pretty much guarantee that you'll never click on them. So especially on Fiddlesticks, it's really useful because you can get to a spot and then you can like ward this, for example. Anyways, let's see what other keys there are. I guess I'll go over items now because items are also a pretty big deal. So interestingly enough, I don't smartcast certain items, and the reason why I don't do that is because on specifically for a slot item one, I usually keep my Sightstone wards here. So whenever you're placing wards, I never ever smartcast it because if you do normal cast on wards, you can see when you've moused over a patch of grass, so that way you don't accidentally like place a ward in like the middle of the lane and not into a bush. Because you can see like here, it looks like it might be in a bush, but it's not actually in the bush because the cursor is like blue. But if we move it down a little bit, now it's green, so I can ward it here now. So like that's pretty useful. And then otherwise, I also recommend you smartcast like the rest of your items, I guess. But I mostly smartcast. I actually put like two items in really weird locations on my keyboard. I put it on C and X. Now, C by default is usually like the character screen. I think it refers to let me see what I put my character screen as. I actually don't remember. I think it's let me see really quickly. I think it's in display. Is it? I don't quite remember. Oh yeah. Yeah, so I put it on 0, okay. So like it's normally this champion info thing, which is sometimes useful to see if you want to see like how much CDR you have or whatever, right? But that's on default C, but I actually moved it because a lot of times I find it really useful to put like my items on a certain hotkey space that is really accessible to my fingers. Because like I feel like if you put it on like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it's really easy to just misclick one of the numbers and then you kind of fuck up and then you end up using the wrong item or whatever. But by putting it on like C and X, I think it's at a much more like specific location, and it lets you like quickly just press C. Because like reaching down for C and X is not very difficult from QWER. I highly recommend it because like if I'm like fighting and I'm like auto attacking with like A clicking and stuff like that, like I can press C with another one of my fingers and it's pretty easy. I like doing that. I also move my trinket to G. I don't think G I forgot what the default thing for G is, but I just like having my trinket on a more accessible button once again. G I don't think is used by anything, so it might not be a bad idea to just place it there. It's a little close to F for flash, but I've never ever accidentally clicked on flash, so I think you should probably do that. And then I have like shift 1 for quick casting a ward in case I need to do that, but I don't think you actually need to. And then other than that, I think sometimes like I'm not sure if the move pet click default is like alt control click or whatever, but it's pretty useful to know because you can control Tibbers with pressing R everywhere, but sometimes that's kind of awkward. So you could just alt right click to control Tibbers. That's only the useful thing about this thing. I guess MeNoHaxor is useful also. This is also quite useful. I don't have allies. I probably should have turned on allies for this example, but selecting allies is really useful, especially if you can quickly like see which ally you're looking at. Because if you're playing somebody like Janna or Lulu who really needs to target an ally, and you're trying to look for that somebody in that team fight, but you can't really see them, you can quickly press like F1 and F2 and just like jump between everybody and like see where you are. Because if I'm like looking here, I can just like quickly jump to another person. It's quite useful. I actually highly recommend you try this. You try this out. It takes a little bit getting used to though. I don't do it as often as I should, but otherwise that's pretty much it. I think probably the stupidest thing is that sometimes if you play somebody like Blitzcrank, you have like a really weird dance that you can do that can sometimes fool people into thinking that you're like pulling somebody or something like that. So whenever I play Blitzcrank, I usually put this on a more accessible key. Like sometimes I put this on like T, and then that way I just run up and just start like spamming, like my dance or whatever, right? Here. Like I literally just run up and it looks like I'm casting an animation for something, but it's like I'm not. That sounds really silly, but like sometimes it works. See, it looks like I'm casting something, and then like, bam. Whoa, the mind games. Anyways, I think that's pretty much all the cube bindings in the game that I think are pretty useful. I went over the important ones already. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That was kind of a weird video, I know, but hopefully these key bindings showed you something interesting. So, yeah. Okay. Cool.